Right. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Dale Aloha here? And I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's O-H-L-A-U. I don't see him. Let's go to Garrett Goodwin. Is Mr. Goodwin here? Is Benj Hall or David Hall here? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Senators, my name is David Benjamin Hall. I was a former candidate for mayor of Boise, Idaho in 2010. Without spending a single dime and without negatively campaigning, I took 26% of the vote. I did that because I was honest with people. I did that because I was telling them not what they wanted to hear, but what I felt that they should know. What I feel that you should know today is that this legislation, the Controlled Substances Act, was passed by a president who was kicked out of office for many, many crimes. None of this legislation that was passed by the federal government had any foundation in science and, in fact, had been turned down by Congress twice. The science that was put into this Controlled Substances Act scheduled marijuana as the same type of toxicity and detriment as heroin. I stand in front of you as a former heroin addict. I became a heroin addict not because of a gateway drug, but because I was lied to about a gateway drug. And that when I went to go and purchase that supposed gateway drug, it was just as easy for me to pick up cocaine, heroin, or morphine. Now, if you want to really protect the children, then I suggest that you do what we've done before: regulation and oversight. Drug dealers are not going to give a concern about an ID. They're only out to make a profit. Unfortunate thing is that many of the organizations that we have in our drug interdiction are also out to make a profit, like Correction Corporation of America, who has a fiducial obligation to produce profits. They produce profits by making sure that people go to jail and that they go to jail for a long time. That's my money. I don't want to see people going to jail for marijuana. Not when the Controlled Substances Act itself was based upon lies and propaganda. And I think it's great to see young people out here today, but I would also encourage you to ask your educators about critical thinking, about thinking for yourselves. I think it's very important that we do the thinking for ourselves and not take it upon statistics, because as Samuel Clemens once said, there are 3 types of lies in this world: outright lies, damnable lies, and statistics. Now let me tell you, currently I am facing a charge for marijuana. And I'm not ashamed to say that I use marijuana. I'm 44 years old and I have used marijuana for 30 years of my life because I have a very deadly disease called depression, a disease that every day is trying to kill me no less than heart disease or any other type of illness that you could possibly describe. The insipid part of this disease is that it's something that can't be operated on. It's not easily diagnosed, and it's very difficult to treat. Let me tell you something more about myself. I used to work for McKesson Drug Company as a salesman selling pharmaceutical drugs. I had to make sure that I knew what these drugs were and what their effects were. And I can tell you, as somebody who's taken many of those drugs, they are dangerous. They are dangerous, and some of their side effects are deadly. That's a fact. In fact, some of the side effects from antidepressants are depression, are suicidal thoughts. And I can tell you, after 30 years of smoking cannabis, I have never yet picked up a joint, finished it, and then wanted to take care of my own life in the way of removing it.
Mr. Hall, could you wrap up, please?
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. Now, what I think this is a personal attack against me and my right to decide for myself how I'm going to live my life, how I'm going to treat my illness. I think this is more about economics and politics than it is about honesty and scientific fact. Now, this is a war that's been declared upon me and my behavior and my choices. Am I to be someone who fights this as a war? Should I go after the people that donate into your campaigns? Should I go after those businesses to discourage them from donating into your campaigns if it's the only way that I can fight back without using violence? Now, I'll tell you, when I go to court, I have to represent myself because I cannot get an attorney to break their oath with upholding the law to defend me against something that I believe is not only unconstitutional, but unreasonable. So I will have to defend myself against this. I will have to go in there before 12 of my peers and convince them that the law is wrong, that the law is inappropriate. And I'm willing to do that. I'm also willing to take up whatever punishment that comes my way, just like the heroes of my life have, like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, or Malcolm X. Because I'm not going to sit on the back of the bus anymore. I'm not going to have politicians and police and people who have never had to walk a mile in my shoes tell me how I'm going to live my life. You don't have the right. There is nothing that I have done in my life that has given you that right to make those choices for me. I'm fighting for my life, I'm fighting for my health, and I'm fighting for my sanity. And let me tell you something. In 4th grade, I was entered into Mensa, the National High IQ Association, with an IQ of over 168. The last time I tested my IQ was 172. And if you want to tell me that 30 years of marijuana abuse has affected my intellect, I've got a very staunch argument for you. Now, you can go ahead
Mr.
and
Hall,
continue to...
Mr. Hall, thank you, but we do have other people signed up.
Just 30 more seconds. Now, I hear a lot of you guys...
Sir, you've gone over
Okay,
more
that's
than
fine.
that, and I appreciate it.
I don't want to take any time from anybody else. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, Benj, I appreciate the emails you've sent me and your perspective. I really do. And I thank you for making the effort. I have one question. Do you wish when you were 14 years old you hadn't started?
I wish when I was 14 years old that people were honest enough with me to tell me that there are facts about things and facts that don't relate to things. If I was told at 14 years old that marijuana was nowhere near as bad as heroin, in all likelihood, I never would have tried it.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I believe we had Cody Turns and then do Corporal Casey Handcuff.
Hello, Chairman, committee members. My name is Koti Turnus. I run 2 local businesses. I volunteer for multiple community organizations. I'm a full-time worker on top of that. Today, I am here representing Compassionate Idaho, over 300 people I have talked to personally, and of course, myself. I'm here asking you, our representatives, to throw out SCR 112 and SMJ 101. They are purely counterproductive legislation. Farmers all over the state want hemp. And if you don't know, the difference between hemp and marijuana is commonly known as hemp is the male plant, marijuana is the female plant. So, like I said, farmers all over the state want hemp. If you don't believe me, ask them yourselves. Hemp can return up to 70% of the nutrients used back into the soil. This nutrient cycling rate is much higher than most other plants, which allows a wide variety of plants to be grown after it. Industrial hemp has a THC content of typically around 0.1%, but never any higher than 0.3%. The amount needed for psychotropic effects is at the very least 2 to 3%. This, of course, means that there is virtually no drug component in industrial hemp. Hemp fiber is also often referred to as the strongest and longest natural fiber. These fibers used, known as cellulose, make up about 30% of a tree, whereas in hemp, cellulose can make up to 85% of the plant. Hemp fibers are much stronger than others, which makes them last much longer. Paper made from hemp does not fade, yellow, or crack in the centuries that it will survive. Hemp can produce more than 250% more fiber than cotton and 600% more fiber than flax using the same amount of land. For thousands of years, hemp was the fabric of choice. Let's make it an option again. When it comes to medicine, when you legalize, when you regulate and make marijuana available as medicine, then you will no longer have people going through the black markets to try and get this substance. This creates a lot more. This keeps the children unable to get this from these drug dealers, and keeps them from being exposed to all these other drugs. and whatnot. Excuse me a second. We are facing two main issues with cannabis, a criminal issue and a psychological issue. Our prison and court systems are filled with an unbelievable amount of people on cannabis-related crimes. A lot of these people are young and would have had a bright future ahead of them. When you have a certain issue, when you have an issue in a certain area of crime, you have to analyze why people commit that crime in the first place. In this case, it's obvious. People want cannabis. That is why they buy it. That is why they sell it. People want it. These aren't all isolated cases. This brings us to our next question and issue. Why do people want it?
And Ms. Turnus, if you could get to your conclusion, please.
Yes, sir. Why do people want it? This is entirely a psychological issue. The first step to dealing with a psychological issue is not to treat it as a criminal problem. People want it because it makes them feel good or they feel they can benefit from it. If we turn it into medication, then we no longer have people getting it illegally for treatment. That leaves us with recreational users and addicts. Unlike hard drugs such as meth, the only real addiction you can have to cannabis is just from how much you like it. The amount that your dopamine levels rise when you smoke marijuana, even every day, if you're only doing a small amount every day, your dopamine levels do not rise to a high enough level of which to cause ill effects when they go back down and cause an addiction effect. It is only pretty much as you actually like it. For those addicted or their habits affect others, we need to have a rehabilitation available to them. So here's the idea for fixing the crime problem and to start working on the psychological problem. We need to do the opposite of these bills and decriminalize, if not legalize, cannabis in all of its forms. Get people that have a problem with this into rehabilitation. Get this out of the black markets. Get the money out of the hands of criminals and into the hand of legitimate businesses. More money means more businesses means more money coming in through taxes. Let's use this money that is going towards fighting it to help out the struggling schools. And I will stand for questioning.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Yeah. We are going to hear from Corporal Casey Handcuff and then Kuel Midgley, Midgley.
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Corporal Casey Handcuff. I'm a member of the Boise Police Department. My current assignment is a member of the Night Step Team, which is a DOI task force basically for the Boise Police Department. I'm also part of the Treasure Valley DUI Task Force, which encompasses a lot of the other jurisdictions in the valley in addressing the DUI problem in our valley. I speak today in favor of SMJ 101 and SCR 112. I come from a viewpoint and a perspective of trying to keep the incident of impaired driving to a minimum and push it down as far as can be possibly achieved. Marijuana itself, as everybody I think in this room understands, is an intoxicant, is an impairing substance that reduces individuals' abilities to multitask, to recall and implement critical responses. Time and distance perception issues also impair the person's ability to drive properly and safely on the roadway. There's also issues with long-term issues with persistence and how that impairs individuals' ability to drive. It's going to be difficult to gather data from the recent states that have legalized marijuana for a recreational use. However, there is certain data from the state of California specifically that had legalized marijuana for medical use. In 2004, when this occurred, there was a marked jump in the amount of fatal crashes in California as it relates to marijuana use. This is a trending issue on this in our country. We know that alcohol is the most abused drug in this country. However, the second most abused drug is marijuana. Alcohol itself, as we know, causes a great deal of issues within our society, and specifically on the road surface. I fail to see. Basically what my research has indicated that there's going to be a long-term detriment to our roadway safety if marijuana is legalized. The persistence in marijuana is different than, we can't compare alcohol to marijuana in this case. Marijuana is persistent in the body for a long period of time. Acute impairment can last up to 24 hours. And there is studies now recently show that impairment from chronic users, even after 3 weeks of abstinence, that their performance in critical tasks involved with driving does not increase or meet or come to the same level as a control group who do not use or do not regularly use marijuana, even after 3 weeks of abstinence. I stand for questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Great, thank you.